Hey, I'm live. And I have it. Okay, so let me get the camera views. I'll be right back. I'm gonna do the intro. Okay, I'm gonna be doing some updates to the screen because I just started to stream without anything, so I'll be right back. T minus 1 minute and 21 seconds till liftoff.
16 seconds before liftoff is the firing of the motor
À 12 de
engines
DDO, attention pour moins 1 minute.
of the 4 lateral boosters and the main core. And we will go from 0 to full power during these 16 seconds.
So we are currently 1 minute
Top.
away from
À 0
takeoff.
moins 1 minute.
Let's momentarily stop the commentary and sit back and enjoy the liftoff together on road to space. But just to remind you all that this is the 13th launch of the year for Arianespace, the 61st mission for the European Space Agency, and the 150th mission launched by Arianespace.
Okay, the heat is on. Oh my god, okay.
Stop.
It has disconnected from the launch arm. It can be stopped now.
Attention pour le début de la séquence
Galileo,
d'allumage du
I know you can do this. Let's do this.
Top.
T minus 20 seconds.
Largage du MAVKM. Allumage triétage.
T minus 15 seconds. T minus
Attention pour le
14.
décompte final. 10,
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Et décollage VS26, Galileo.
Liftoff! Liftoff! Wow.
Les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
Whose screen's shotting this? I need this.
Raphael, that was very impressive. That a ball of fire
No, I don't.
bolting into
Bonne
the
stabilisation
sky.
du lanceur.
I cannot get tired of it.
I bet.
Like really, it's always very impressive. And this is like, you know,
Yay.
passing through the clouds.
What sort of speed is it going at
It
now?
is night. You cannot, you can hardly imagine that it's night right now because it's so bright.
It's so bright.
The light. So right now, Soyuz is providing the main thrust for the mission to escape really the gravitational pull of the
Soyuz,
Earth.
let's go!
And in a few seconds, you should see
Yay,
the separation of the
Soyuz.
4 lateral boosters
believe in ya.
that are surrounding the main core.
Bring this
I
baby
mean,
space.
you can imagine that
Yo.
in 2 minutes, the Soyuz will have gone from 0 to about 50 kilometers of
That's
altitude.
quite incredible.
From 0 to 2 kilometers per second.
Bonne stabilisation du lanceur. Les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
Like, what
This is
what
probably
did you
now
say?
faster than like a bullet. Faster than a bullet
Faster than
right
And
a
we
now.
bullet.
Yeah.
and I keep forgetting to do that.
You've got the
cares
earpiece.
now?
What is the DDO? What did he just
What
say
is
then?
that button?
It says that everything is nominal, the trajectory is
I
nominal,
need to press
so
that big fat button.
everything's looking good for Soyuz right now.
Go.
So you can see the light coming from the 4
21.
boosters.
So in 10
Stop.
seconds, we will have the confirmation, won't we, of the separation of the boosters.
3, 2, 1.
And during this,
Let's hear it and see if
yeah,
you have.
oh wow,
Oh,
you can
wow,
see it.
we can see it. It's
Wow, that's
incredible.
really
What a
incredible.
sight, Raphael.
That was meant
Because
for
usually
you.
you can see it in daylight, but at night
At
it's very
night,
rare.
it's quite incredible.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go
Must
for
be
that.
Séparation des
Think
blocs
that was
BVGD.
meant for you.
So we should be in some seconds as well.
No,
BC.
so it's confirmed. It's separated. You saw it, and you can tell that Soyuz is now waiting only. I'm saying only 100 tons. It was
Bonne stabilisation du lanceur suite
310
à
tons
séparation.
before.
Next, that was max
So it
power
lost
that already got that.
70% of its weight.
Wow, that's quite
Okay,
incredible.
we're gonna wait till we
But,
have.
so it's got 4
successful meetup.
boosters.
Les paramètres
Is this
propulsifs
specific
sont conformes à
to
l'attendu.
Soyuz? Yeah, we can see now on the 3D images, it has 4 boosters. Can you talk to us about that?
Well, I mean, the size and the number of the boosters that you need for a flight really depends on how much power you want to give to your rocket to place the satellites into space. On Soyuz, you have 4 boosters. On Ariane 5, we have 2, but they are bigger. On Vega, we have 1 booster. So it really depends on the performance that is required for the mission. With Ariane 6, we will have
Les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
Now
2
I
versions,
realize
one
that
with 2 boosters and one with
its
4
booster
boosters,
separation,
depending
this
also on the
vehicle does not
performance of the
line up.
launch
So I
vehicle.
need to
To
update
give you an
that.
idea, with Ariane 62, you can, with Ariane 64, you can double the mass of the satellites to be put into, for
So
example,
we already
the
had that.
stationary
So I'm
transport
gonna give
rocket.
a green
So if we look
a
at
green light to that.
the images
This
which
is
are coming up now, the
separation.
3D images, the
So
wonderful image
currently
of
next we have
the launch
Nico
vehicle.
and
What
the
can we
state
see? You can see the
separation,
altitude,
and if
distance,
I'm
speed.
allowed
So
to
right
stay
now
up
it's
to that long,
117
there will
kilometers
be
of
will
altitude.
And sorry to
That
interrupt, in
makes
3
40.
seconds we will just, sorry, we
But
will also be
I
having the
know
separation of the fairing. There we go.
fairing
Attitude du lanceur,
separation.
conforme à l'attendu.
That's
I do
just been
not have
confirmed, has it
that.
not?
I feel so bad
It
now.
is
But we have
confirmed.
a success
Séparation de
fairing
demi-quart.
separation
So now
today.
it's confirmed, and it's a very good
Brilliant.
news because the mission can continue. You can imagine that it's an important step. Otherwise, we could not release the satellites into space. So it means that we are above the atmosphere,
Les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
and that the satellites don't need the protection of the fairing anymore. It was protecting them from the friction of the air.
So if I've understood rightly, we are now
They're
waiting for the
above,
separation
they're
of the
above
second
the
stage, is that
atmosphere.
right?
Yes,
I
it's
think
right. And
they
this
say
is
everything was
a
normal. So,
specular
yeah,
separation because
I'm currently
the
just
third
waiting for
stage
Nico.
is going to ignite
Let's
2
listen
seconds
in to the
before, and this is
commentary.
actually the ignition of the third stage that will push the second stage and separate it from the rest of the launch vehicle. And it should come any
second
seconds
now. There we go.
So waiting for the confirmation of the DDO,
Okay, you're about to.
because I remind that this is 3D simulations here.
Allumage bloqué, extinction bloca et séparation.
So it's confirmed.
Confirmed!
So
Brilliant.
the
That's
mission
really
can
That was
brilliant
basically
continue.
16
Another
in
important
one.
step.
So I need a
So the
flow.
second stage, or the main core, has now been
Right.
separated.
section
The
arrière.
third stage remains
Check.
the one that powers the launch.
Always
What is the role
go.
of each of these
I'm
stages
not
for
in
the
the stream.
launcher?
Well, having
That
several
was
stages increases the
Galileo.
mass of the satellites to be put into
Bonne
orbit.
stabilisation suite à séparation.
So the principle is rather simple, and we
That's the
progressively get rid of any mass
So,
on the launcher that is
yeah,
useless.
so
It's like if you want an image, you can consider a fuel truck. Let's consider that the truck is driving using the gas contained in its tanks. When the first tank is empty, it becomes completely useless. So it becomes dead weight, if you will. And we just remove this dead weight to make the rest of the rocket lighter and to gain power to continue the mission.
So if that, so
So
we're
at
just
this
gonna
stage
wait
of the
until
mission,
we
Raphael,
have,
how far along is our launcher?
I don't know,
So you
something
can see
happened.
that it
okay,
has traveled
so
780
Fonctionnement normal
ask
du
me any
lanceur
questions
suivant les trois axes.
below down in the
kilometers in
chat.
only
I'll be
6
waiting for them.
minutes.
That's incredible.
So it's now at the speed of 4.5 kilometers per second. I remind that all the parameters are on the screen so everybody can read it. So it's 3 or 4 times
Les
the
paramètres
speed
propulsifs sont conformes à l'attendu.
of a bullet right now.
So we're getting
On.
closer to the naval station. What are the specificities? I can't say
Thank
that word.
God I
The
was about
specifics
to
of this
miss. I was
station.
about to miss.
Well, unlike ground telemetry stations, the naval station is located right in the middle of the Atlantic
I was about to
Ocean.
miss a ULA launch.
In this case, this is a ship that is
Oh, never mind.
equipped with an
Because
antenna
it's gonna
that we position
It is
on
gonna
the
launch.
ocean a
Let's
couple
go
of days before the
time
launch.
4:04
So this is a mobile station
a.m.
on water, literally.
Yeah, and it
Christ,
raises
no,
some
I would not cover
logistic
that.
issues
But I
because
would
we need
stay
to
up and
position
watch it.
the ship in
So I'm
advance.
not gonna be
The ship
covering
really needs
Acquisition de la
the
télémesure par la station navale.
SB551
Okay,
rocket
very
I'm
good
watching
news. The
SB.
ship
I
needs,
really want to
I
cover
said
that.
that it's
That's
We've
just
just
a
acquired
too
it.
early for
technological
me.
issue because
That's
the
just
ship needs to
way
be
too
stable
early
and
for
well
me.
oriented in order
Stay
to
up.
receive the signal
NASA space
from
flight,
the
you
launcher
can have
with
coverage.
sufficient
Please,
accuracy.
Paramètres propulsifs du bloc I
please.
Can you
correct.
confirm, Raphael? He has confirmed the
Just
acquisition
do
of the
it.
naval
Just
station.
do
That's
it.
brilliant
The
news.
acquisition is
Please, I
confirmed.
So
beg
we've already talked
you.
about this
I
station for the
beg.
previous Vega
I'm
flight,
begging.
VB20. That flight also had
Please.
a rather unusual trajectory.
So,
Can you perhaps also tell us what direction the launch is
yeah,
going
they
and our
scrapped
launch is
her
going on
today. We
tonight?
Well,
probably
I mean, this
continue,
is the
but then
targeted
it'll be
orbit that
tomorrow
really
if
drives the
not.
trajectory of the launcher, and
Actually,
it
I don't
drives
know.
what we
I
call
don't know
the
what's
ground
autumn.
track. It is, in a way,
So
the
let's just now
shadow
listen to
of
the
the
commentary.
launcher
I'm
on
gonna
the
leave for a
Earth's
momentary break.
surface. And right
See you
now,
in
the
a little.
inclination of the targeted orbit for Galileo is 57 degrees with respect to the equator. And we have the obligations to continuously monitor the position of the launcher up to a certain altitude. And
Les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
sometimes, like today, it happens that we cannot follow the launcher from a fixed ground station because the launcher passes over the Atlantic Ocean, and it will continue over Normandy and England. This is why we need such a naval station.
It's going over my home country. That's brilliant.
You're English, right?
So yeah, you hadn't guessed already. So anyway, so we're going in a northeasterly eastern direction. Is that right then?
Yeah, exactly. But you know, we use a different network of telemetry
Séquence, elle se
stations
déroule telle que planifiée.
depending on the trajectory. For example, for a mission going towards the east, that's the case for geostationary transfer orbit missions, we use a different network of telemetry stations.
Paramètres propulsifs du bloc I conforme à l'attendu.
And when we target the sun-synchronous orbit, we are launching towards the north, and we are using another set of telemetry stations. And the DDO just said that everything is nominal right now.
So can you just tell us at 9:23, 9 minutes 23 seconds, he will be announcing what?
Well,
The
the separation of the third stage, which is another very important step here.
It's now, that's right. We can see it on the 3D images.
Yes,
it's
and
quite
we are
incredible.
waiting, yes, we are waiting for the confirmation, of course,
And there
from the
we have
DDO.
it. I think the most wonderful image I've ever seen of this type of golden mushroom.
Yeah,
What is
this is
that?
Okay,
this is the
now
frigate
we're waiting
upper stage.
Extinction du bloc I
for
et séparation.
confirmation
So it's
of
confirmed. The first stage
successful
has been
Brilliant.
separated.
Seeker.
And right now, it is the frigate upper stage that is going to continue the mission. It is that
We have
upper stage
confirmation.
that is going to place
In
the
plus
Galileo
10
satellites
minutes.
into
I've
their
been live for this
orbit,
line for
separated
over 10
orbit.
minutes now.
And from there, the Galileo
I'm very
satellites
happy.
will
Thank
place
you.
themselves on their
I wonder how
operational
long this
orbit.
live stream's going to
So can you just tell, what is it
Hmm.
exactly in a couple of words before we get the announce from the DDO about the ignition of the first frigate?
Yeah, so the
I
ignition of the
forgot
first frigate
now.
is
It's
really to
separated
place
from the
this upper stage. So it's happening right now. We will need the
ignition.
confirmation from
I
the
don't
DDO
know what
to
that's
place this upper
called.
stage
It's
on an
I think
elliptical
it's something. Okay, people, if you know, if you're
intermediate
watching
orbit,
and know what that
and
is,
it's going
know
to
what I'm
ignite
thinking
for
about, what
12
that is,
or
please tell
13
me in the comments.
minutes,
I do
which is
not
quite
know
long
what.
because
12 or
it
13
requires
minutes, that's
some
quite
energy to
incredible.
place the upper stage on this
I'm thinking that I can't think.
orbit.
But
So we're
okay,
still
so
waiting for
I'm gonna watch some
confirmation.
comments.
Exactly. And then we
It's
will
coming.
have a long ballistic phase
Oh, it's going to.
of about 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Confirmation du premier allumage de l'étage frégate.
That's confirmed.
Confirmed.
So
Brilliant.
another,
Everything is
probably
going to plan.
one of the most important
Synchronized
sets for the
sequence.
missions. Yes. So I was saying that we will have 13 minutes of ignition of this upper stage.
30
Then we will
minutes?
turn the engines off.
Did I hear that
And the
correctly?
Soyuz, the
I
frigate
am
will
not
follow the
doing
path.
that. You hear me twice,
Engines
I
off
am not doing that.
for a long ballistic
So I'm gonna
phase.
go
It
till
will
20
be like
minutes
coasting in space
of this launch.
for
No,
3
I'm
hours
not.
and 20 minutes before
Plus
it
10,
will
20
ignites.
minutes, which
And
is
this
basically
time
10
it will change
minutes.
also the trajectory from
After
an
this,
elliptic one
I
to
am
a
not going
circular
to.
one.
A circular,
Not
okay.
one.
Yes,
That's
which is
interesting.
going to be
That's like 8.
the final
No,
orbit
I'm
where
not
the
doing that.
satellites are going to be separated into space.
It's moving at an incredible speed. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, so right now
Incredible
it's
speed.
yeah.
You can see
Okay,
the
I see.
naval station
Yeah,
coming into
exactly.
view on our...
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is not
And
at
I think
all.
that
So we are- so-
we will
Even
go from
Acquisition d'un télémesure par la station de Santa Maria des
bruh.
Açores.
so that's
So
what I was
what is
about to
happening?
Do
say.
you have
Tell us,
It mean-
Raphael.
yeah,
I
it
can't
means that
stay
the
up till
next
that time.
telemetry
Okay, I'm probably
stations
I'm
just
gonna be
took
live
over
until
the signal, and Santa Maria is
Where is
you know,
Santa Maria?
You see that this is an island,
Santa.
part of the Azores
Thanks for the
archipelagos.
Christmas
It is
spirit.
located west of
I know you're gonna
Portugal.
laugh
It's
about
in
this.
the Atlantic Ocean.
Anyways,
And like I
okay,
said, it is
the
now
next
taking back
about
the
10
signal
minutes,
from
I'm
the
just gonna
launcher.
let you
So
see
can you
this,
remind us
and then
again
I'm
how
done.
it's a rather long mission and how long it will last?
It will last 3 hours and
So-
50 minutes in total. So yes, this is an unusual, particularly long mission here.
3
So,
hours?
Can you imagine that
Sorry.
in 12 minutes we have traveled 3,400 kilometers?
Okay,
We have
I
crossed
thought-
the Atlantic Ocean
Wow.
in 12 minutes. And right now it's
Is this supposed to go
Approaching-
out of orbit to Mars?
it's approaching Europe
Or is
actually,
this supposed to
and
be
it will pass
a mission to
above
Les
Elio?
paramètres propulsifs de
Or
l'étage
geostationary
frégate
orbit?
sont nominaux.
So-
I am
so
not
everything
staying.
in nominal.
So
I'm
we're
very
about
tired,
to
right?
lose, we've
Almost
lost
my
the
min-
naval
my
station.
bed-
The expert
bedtime,
is,
and I'm
Raphael
staying.
is confirmed the loss of a naval station.
My eyes are doing wrong.
So why are we
Okay,
losing the
so
signal? For how long?
you have to get a
So
rest.
this is completely
I
normal. We lose the
said
signal
that's
when,
why
from the
I'm not
telemetry
staying
station
up that
point of
long.
view, the launcher
Even
disappears
though the
behind
flash
the
is like
horizon.
only
So to
23
answer
seconds
your
now, I
questions,
don't care. I
we
just
sort of don't
really,
need the naval station
really,
anymore because it
really
has been
tired.
recovered
I'm
by the Santa
not,
Maria
yeah,
station.
you hear me?
It has
I am
taken over
not
the job to follow
staying
the
up
launcher. This is
that
why we
long.
use actually several successive
So
stations
currently
to
I'm just gonna
follow
like
the
here
trajectory of the
and
launch
to
vehicle
when
in
I'm
real
done,
time.
and I'll see
And
you
this
in
is like
about
a chain of
at
acquisition and
at
losses along the course with
10
sometimes
plus
short visibility
20
holes
minutes.
when a station loses the signal before the next one recovers it.
Well, thank you, Raphael. In a couple of minutes, the two satellites will be orbited into space to join the Galileo constellation, 23,000 kilometers above our heads, which is quite incredible to think of that.
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
They have, however, already traveled a long way to get here. And we have some footage we'd like to share, which dates from the start of the Galileo satellites and launcher campaign. And it will be coming up on our screen shortly. And Raphael, as usual, I'd like you to comment on them.
Of course, if the image come, because obviously it's a long work before the flight. So here we see that the launcher elements arrive by boat at the Guyana Space Center. So they are stored in large containers, and the Soyuz assembly is done in the integration building called the MIC. So one can notice that the integration is achieved horizontally, exactly what it's done in Russia. And the lateral booster here are first positions around the central core,
Cool.
on top of which the third stage will be
That's
attached.
way,
And you can see that the operators
They
look
look so
very
small,
small,
they look
right?
very
Yeah,
small.
on the image. So it's quite impressive images that we see
It's
here.
vast.
And in parallel, the satellites arrived by plane. The two Galileo satellites arrived by plane and were transferred to the preparation building. There, many operations are done in clean rooms. Satellites are removed from their container. They are integrated on their adapter. They are
dust
fueled.
inspected.
Yes, exactly. And like you see, and like you said, these are very, very careful operations. And you will see that after this, the satellites will be transferred to another building where they are carefully mounted. So they are protected here for the transfer. And they are carefully mounted on the frigate upper stage first. Together, they are, so you can see here, with this golden jewel, like that you mentioned before,
It's a technological
they are
jewel.
encapsulated inside the fairing that will protect them from the friction of the atmosphere during the ascent phase. And this assembly structure is what we call the upper composite. And there you see that the Soyuz is transferred to the launch pad horizontally. It is tilted in vertical position. This operation is very also impressive. And we will place the upper composite on top of it. And now it's ready for flight. A beautiful flight that we saw earlier.
Since this operation, what has happened to Soyuz and Galileo? Can you tell us about this Soyuz launcher?
Yeah, we had a lot of operations that happened.
Fonctionnement nominal de l'étage frégate.
That happened for about 9 hours before the flight. Lots of operation, and we saw this magnificent flight happening.
Yes, in 1 minute, the DDO will announce the extinction of the first frigate ignition and the acquisition of Osogel. This will be the beginning, obviously, of a very long phase during which we will cut off comments, but you can continue to follow the end of this mission and the separation of the two satellites on Twitter. As I say, we're waiting at 1822, around that time, for the acquisition of Osogel, another station.
Even try to record it.
And
Osogel, which is located 20 kilometers south of Toulouse. So it really means that the launcher is going to pass in not too long above our head.
Above our heads, that's brilliant to think that. So the flights
now
follow a
want to
path
get
of different
copper. I got
stations along its
copper.
trajectory. How many will there be until the end of
Tous
this
les
flight?
paramètres à bord sont normaux.
So after Osogel, there is going
I wanna
to
think
be
about
another
it.
one,
When I'm
new Northscale, that
alone
will follow the
got
trajectory
copyrighted.
until the end of the mission.
So we're just seeing up on the screen now, we're about to lose Santa Maria and we're about to acquire Osogel. Can you see there, Raphael?
Acquisition de la télémesure par la
Yeah, we
station
can very
d'Osogel,
clear, we can
12.
see the trajectory,
It's
the
going
path
to,
very
it's,
clearly.
you can see that it really is going to pass over your hometown, right?
Let's see.
Well,
No, but
Let's
the
search it up,
reignition
huh? I
capability
got my
of
little
upper
browser
stages
on
is
here.
very key to
I'm gonna
perform
go
such complex
search it up.
missions. It's particularly
Let me
key
see.
to launch constellations, for
search up
example,
Google.
because you need to separate the satellites, for example, at different locations in space. And so you need this reignition capability in order to manage these multiple separation satellites into space.
So we've just had the announcement of the loss of Santa Maria. And going back to our two satellites, the two Galileo satellites are the 23rd and 24th satellites we put into orbit by Arianespace for the European Commission. The previous flights started in 2011, which each their own particularities. Raphael, can you tell us about the history of Galileo, which is the largest constellation ever built by the European Space Agency for the European Commission?
Yes. Like you see, the first Soyuz was lifted off from French Guiana in 2011. This was actually the first, this was for Galileo. The first Soyuz flight was for Galileo, and we're celebrating the 20th year's anniversary of this launch vehicle. And since then, we performed 7 Soyuz flights orbiting 14 satellites, and 3 Ariane 5 flights orbiting 12 satellites, because with Ariane 5, you can actually accommodate 4 satellites at a time. With Soyuz, we launched 2 satellites at a time.
So how long has Arianespace been serving the institutions?
Well, since the very beginning, since the creation of Arianespace in 1980, it has orbited a total of 180 satellites for European institutions, for the European Commission, of course, for the European Space Agency, and for 11, I think, different countries in Europe. For many applications, Galileo, of course, the Copernicus program, which is the Earth observation program of Europe, for meteorological satellites, for environment monitoring, defense program, and of course, scientific and exploration missions.
So what are the most emblematic missions, Raphael, that Arianespace has launched for Europe, for example?
That's very difficult to choose, of course.
Well, what are your most emblematic ones?
Well, I mean, I remember, I was not working for Arianespace at that time, but I really remember the launch of Rosetta in 2004. It's a space probe that reached the comet Chury 10 years later. And deposit like a small Philae robot. It was very,
I'm not surprised you remember that one.
Yeah, it's very emblematic. The BP Colombo space probe that was launched in 2018 to explore the Mercury planet, which is the closest to the Sun. And I also can think of a Vega flight who also happened in 2018. The ADM Aeolus, which is an ESA program dedicated to the study of wind profiles in the atmosphere. This is an example of missions dedicated to the environment monitoring.
So what's next on the agenda then?
Well, I'm sure that you know that on December 20, which is in 2 weeks, we will launch the James Webb Space Telescope, which is going to be absolutely amazing with Ariane 5. It's the biggest telescope ever deployed into space. It will replace the current Hubble telescope. It will be placed, listen to me,
where is it going to be
at
placed?
1.5 million kilometers from the Earth. To study with unprecedented
million kilometers from the Earth.
Yes, exactly. To study with unprecedented detail the deep universe, because you probably know that the more distant you see, you look, the closest you are from the origin of the universe, which is the Big Bang. So it will really witness the birth of the most distant galaxies of our universe. And I'm thinking also of another one who will take off shortly after. It is the JUICE space probe. It will meet the icy moon of Jupiter, which has really fascinating worlds where scientists expect to find some forms of life. It is going to be very, very exciting.
Well, Raphael, we're just about to have soon the first phase of the frigate ignition extinction. The DDO will announce that to us soon. Look, coming up on our screens. So the 2 satellites on board the Soyuz launcher tonight are Galileo Fock M9, Sat 2728 we call them, and they're the 27th and 28th in the constellation. So, Raphael, where are they now?
So we are waiting for the confirmation of the cutoff of the
where
frigate
are they now?
engines.
If you look at the map up on the screen, they're floating.
Can you see?
Coasting.
Can you recognize?
And shut up
Can I recognize?
Into that. I never know what it is. I never knew this.
Is it England?
So right now, just to tell you that right now it's 600 kilometers of altitude,
Actually, I only watched
which is quite high.
I don't
So
know
we
what
are-
is what you're going to tell me.
I learned a lot, and I never knew.
So we're still, as I say, waiting again for the announcement of the DDO, the confirmation from the DDO of the frigate extinction.
Yes, exactly.
Confirmation de l'extinction du frégate.
Raphael?
Another very important step, because we have the confirmation of the extension of the frigate engines. So right now, it's a rather long journey that is waiting for the frigate. Is going to stay there for 3 hours and 20 minutes. We will have a short telemetry loss for about 21 minutes, but like I explained to you, this is completely normal. And then we will have a second boost of frigate in order to circularize the orbits.
Can I just tell our listeners that just to remind you all, we will be cutting off all comments during this long phase of the mission, but just don't forget that you can follow us the end of the launch on Twitter. That's what I wanted to say, Raphael. Everyone can follow us on Twitter. So what are the next steps of the mission, and what are the most important ones?
Yeah, that is what I was explaining. The second boost of frigate is going to circularize the trajectory, and it's going to be at 23,000 kilometers from the Earth. And shortly after this, the satellites are going to be separated radially, and they will reach their own operational orbits using their own propulsion means. And from there, it's going to be the end of Arianespace's mission, of the Soyuz mission, but this is going to be the beginning of the life of the satellites. Let's hope for many years to come in order to deliver all the applications that we've heard earlier to the citizens.
Well, we are about to lose the visibility of Astroguel, and I would like to just thank you, Raphael Chevrier, for being with us tonight at this late hour, now early morning here in Paris, and helping us to decipher. There we go, the DDO has just confirmed the loss of visibility of Astroguel. As I say, not always easy the different stages of today's VS26 mission to explain, but you've explained them to us wonderfully, and I must thank all the teams here who have helped us prepare this program in Paris. Say see you soon, everybody, on Road to Space for the next fabulous adventure, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter for the rest of the mission. And I must say goodbye to this wonderful golden mushroom, which is floating, coasting in the air tonight into space.
Thank you, Emma.
Thank you, Raphael.
I don't know when to stop. There's the animation, so I think it's the time to stop the live stream. Thank everyone for joining in. And here's a little sponsorship, I think they call it, to Max Q Aerospace. Marcus, thank you. Like the only person who ever commented. So, yeah. I thank everyone for making this possible. They're now just showing an ignition thing. So, thank you, everyone. I'm like, this wouldn't be possible without you. So yeah, thanks. Thanks, y'all. Now I gotta zoom out. I think they're done with the launch. Like, they don't want to show anything else. So, see you, everybody, and ciao.